And we're live. Welcome everyone to episode 1 of React Native Live. You're probably wondering what happened to React Native Mornings? Nothing. This is still the same show, just under different rebranding. We're renamed to React Native Live. The cool thing is we have our own socials, own YouTube. Please subscribe and share so you can keep following along this journey and all the amazing stuff we have up for you for this year. As always, as I like to do, while you're all signing on, go ahead and tell me where you're joining us from. I'll go first. I'm Mazen Chami, and I'm coming to you from Durham, North Carolina. And my guest for today is Jacek Pudysz. Hey, Jacek, where are you joining us from?
Hello, I'm joining from Poland, snowy Poland.
Nice. Oh, it's snowing now. Oh, nice. Nice. Happy to hear that. So I'm very excited about this show to have with you. And you and I have been chatting a lot in Discord and stuff, and it's kind of nice to see you in person. So you are the CEO of CodeMask,
That's correct.
and most people might know you from Uniwind and Unistyles, right? So that's amazing. Those are great packages that I love and you kind of use all the time. Before we begin, I know, I kind of want to mention, you gave your talk at React Universe last year, correct? Was that your first talk?
No, my first talk was a few months ago in Paris.
Oh,
so that was my second talk.
Second talk, nice. Yeah, I gave my first talk at React Universe in Wrocław, September 24. So that was kind of nice to be able to do that. Your talk was very cool. It was called Mission Unistyles, the hunt for zero cost runtime styling. I love that talk. It was a very informative talk. And actually, from that talk, it kind of helped me reach out to you and be like, I want to have you on the show, other than, using your packages in my, client apps all the time. So I really appreciate that. I always like to ask my guests about their hobbies. And I asked you this question and you kind of gave me a very funny answer. It was right after the holidays. And you were like, well, I was working on Uniwind during the holidays. And you called yourself a workaholic. It wasn't me. But either way, you said you like sports and gym. I love sports. I'm kind of getting back into gym and stuff. What sports do you follow?
Yeah, so, it sounds silly, but I really love to work. Maybe that's not the best, description about my hobbies, but actually, if you love your job, it's your hobby. And apart from that, like you mentioned, it's gym. I try to stay in shape, and that's my regular day-to-day activity because I sit entire day. Apart from that, I love to travel. Maybe it also sounds silly, but that's my life. I really enjoy it.
No, I hear you. I mean, I try to work out every day prior to kind of sitting down for most of the day. So it's nice to kind of get that exercise in early and stuff. And I think if you followed me before, you'll know I'm a big soccer fan, or football. I like to call it football fan. So that's something that I follow all the time. So yeah. So we haven't started officially yet, everyone, but as you're logging on, we're kind of getting things situated here. We're gonna start in a couple minutes. Grab your coffee, get ready to go. Please let us know where you're joining us from, because I always like to kind of hear where everyone's coming in. So Pakistan, Riyadh, Bulgaria, Vietnam. That's crazy. We're almost covering the entire planet. I'd love to hear someone joining us from Oceania. That would be fun. So Jacek, can you introduce yourself to the audience and just tell us how you got to where you are at now in your career?
Yeah, so hello everyone, I'm Jacek. I'm CTO and co-founder at CodeMask. We are a company based in Poland. We are focusing on JavaScript, not only on React Native. React Native actually is my hobby and my my best technology I use day to day. I told you about my hobbies. So you most likely know me because of my tool libraries, Unistyles and Uniwind. I started working on them a few years ago, and right now they are quite popular. Um, I hope you use them in your hobby projects or maybe in the your clients' projects.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. For me personally, I use Unistyles on all my hobby projects and then also on actually all the client projects that I'm on. And I believe here at Infinite Red too, we have a couple of clients that are using Unistyles. So that's pretty cool. And I know um, Uniwind specifically. I know someone specifically. I believe it's Sean from Infinite Red that does use Uniwind on his personal projects too. So that's also that's great. That's great
That's
to hear.
awesome.
Yeah.
Happy to hear that.
Yeah. I actually want to point something out. My first introduction to you and kind of finding you online was I believe it's pre Unistyles. It was React Native Crossroads, which if no one's familiar with that, that's your blog post that you have, right? I'm gonna post it here in the chat so everyone kind of has access to it, and I'll kind of bring it up here. So React Native Crossroads is your blog that you use, and you've done some tutorials on there in the past. And I will say this, I believe it was 2024, also at Chain React, I led a advanced topic where we were talking about native development and talking about code gen and turbo modules in native. And your blog article was my inspiration to kind of take that concept and make it into a workshop, and it was a very fun workshop to say. So yeah, so thank you for that. And I think most people should follow and subscribe to that blog post.
Yeah, I must say, remember these blog posts. That was the time when I started to learning turbo modules, React Native, JSI, and so on. And most likely, you know that if you want to understand something better, you need to explain it to someone. So that's what I did, and right now I use it for some Expo plugins, for some insights about Unistyles, Uniwind. So if you are a React Native developer, please check my blog. Um, it will be super helpful if you want to dive deeper into the React Native core.
Yeah. And I think even if you're a junior or a beginner in React Native, it's a very good tutorial because it does it from the instead of following Expo, for example, like that gives it all set up for you. It's doing it from scratch, from the beginning stages, and it helps you as a beginner learn the internals and kind of grow within React Native and understand how React Native works underneath the hood, right? We talk about the old architecture and the bridge and how that functioned. What's different now? How does that work? So there's that. Well, again, as always, thank you for coming on to the show. I'm excited to talk about styling specifically because our apps wouldn't look good without styling, right? So there's
true.
that. Yeah. And like I mentioned, my current client app is in production, and we are using Unistyles. So, we've had a lot of success with it. And I know some people in our audience too. So audience, thanks for signing on. Please keep the chat going. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. And then I'll prompt Jacek as we're kind of going on. So, I had to kind of kick things off. I had a question for you. And I think, maybe React Native Crossroads is an example of this. What's your process for learning about React Native internals, right? Unistyle seems to do a lot of stuff under the hood. And, what's your discovery process through all this?
So that's a very good question. If you ask me if there are any resources to learn about the React Native internals, I think you won't find any.
Mm-hmm.
I started from the software mentioned workshops where they showed me JSI. I didn't even know that there is a new technology that will be used so heavily in new architecture called JSI. It was back in 2022, I guess, so 4 years ago. So at the beginning, it was super hard to understand any piece of JSI, any piece of fabric. We all use old architecture with Java. Default React Native template use Java, use Objective-C, so that have changed. But after that, after you start to dive deep into the core, you also start to see new patterns or how the data flow from JavaScript via the C++ to Objective-C or to the Kotlin. So right now, I just read changelog of each React Native version. If there is anything about JSI, about shadow node, shadow tree, anything with shadow is super important to me. I also do enjoy to use the application called, I think it's from Vercel, it's called grep, where you can quickly type, I don't know, shadow node, and it will list you all the repositories with this keyword. So I'm doing it to find quickly things in the React Native repository. So actually, that's my day-to-day learning path.
Yeah, that's cool. You're learning by reading the code and reading the changelog. So
Correct.
that's always, yeah, that's a great way to learn, I think. And like you said, unfortunately, there's not a lot of tutorials or books out there. I mean, and React Native changes so fast, right? So, if we were to write a book today, by the end of the year, that book probably doesn't hold its footing much,
also,
right?
it's super low level, so most of the developers shouldn't learn about it.
Yeah. No, I agree. So, coming into styling, which I think we've kind of talked about briefly, it's very important, and all our apps need it. It's kind of want to, alongside routing, for example, or even, what list are you going to use? Flash list, legend list, just regular flat list. Along with that, you always have to make the decision on styling. Like, how are you going to style your app to give you that, your brand and bring that brand across? So that being said, one thing I also want to mention, Unistyles, Uniwind, they're not, what do you call them?
They're not UI kits. They
UI
are
kits.
styling
Thank you.
libraries.
Yes, they're styling libraries. They're not UI kits. You're not going to get a button or a predefined switch. You're going to have to build them, but Unistyles is giving you internals to kind of build your own design system library if you want to. So what was your motivation? Unistyles was the first product. What was your motivation for Unistyles to be born? Was it, out of a problem you were seeing with your clients? What happened?
Yeah, everything starts from the problem. Back then, we had a client that had like a big Figma file with hundreds of screens of components. So it was hard to pick any UI kit to build such extensive, framework or style libraries, UI kit, however you call it. And I remember I do a research about the possibilities about the existing solutions, but I wasn't happy. And I created the initial version of Unistyles inside the monorepo, inside the client project. And after a year, I think, I saw some improvements. I saw that I can improve it in multiple ways, and also I had to extract it from the client's code because the TypeScript types, the branding was there. So I just, I think it was like 2 years ago in October, I open sourced it, the first version. It was JavaScript version, 100%. There was no C++ code, nothing fancy, just hooks and a way to abstract away the style sheet. So that was the main reason.
Okay, cool. Let's stay on Unistyles for a little bit. So V1 kind of came out, JavaScript only. Then you released V2. What was V2? What was the main reason for V2?
So I took my learnings from JSI and React Native internals, and I rewrote the Unistyles core inside C++. It was kind of hybrid. So some of the code lived on JavaScript side. I said lived because it's deprecated, so this version is not available anymore, but it was kind of hybrid. So I started to explore new patterns. How can we improve styling, which sounds boring? And why should we use C++ even to style the app if we have everything inside the style sheet? So yeah, I think that was my exploration. What's possible?
Yeah. And then Darren brings up everything starts with a problem, like you said. This is very true. When there's a problem for us developers, we want to find a way to solve it and kind of make our lives easier from it, right? So that was V2, hybrid. And then V3, which is what I'm my project is currently on. And I think for our listeners, if you started with V3, you have it so good because this is like such a refined product. And I know you're leveraging Nitro modules too with that, built by Margello and Mark Rusavi out there.
Correct.
So then, yeah, build up on that. So hybrid, V2 was hybrid. What's now V3 doing?
V2 was a hybrid by name, but V3 uses hybrids from React Native Nitro modules.
Exactly.
Mark Rusavi approached me last year around July, and he asked me if I want to be a part of the beta program of Nitro. So as soon as I saw how we can construct type-safe bindings, so we write a TypeScript shape, and Nitro generates for you C++ layer, Swift layer, Kotlin layer. So the first improvement was to remove almost entirely Objective-C++. V3 is written in Swift, is written in Kotlin, and everything from start to end is type-safe. It was generated, like the boilerplate was generated by the Nitro. That's why it was possible to make the JavaScript code super thin. So this is thin layer of hybrids from Nitro, and most of the code lives on the C++ side.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, that's great. And for our listeners, if something's on the C++ side, it's using that lower level code. So it's fast, it's optimized, and like Jacek said, it's type safe, right? Type safety right now is very important to make sure there's no layer that's missing within there. Robin's asking a good question here. What are some lesser known features the community might not be using enough from Unistyles?
It's about Unistyles or
Unistyles, yeah.
Wow. So I think lesser known features. I think most of you know that you can import Unistyles runtime. It's a global object.
Mm-hmm.
You can use it out of React, and as soon as you read it, it will give you the fresh value from Kotlin or from Swift about your phone. For example, top inset, bottom inset, status bars, dimensions, screen dimensions. So I don't think it's a lesser known feature, but I think it's the most cool feature. Like you can remove a lot of third-party dependencies because you can read these values inside React as a hook, or out of React as a JavaScript object, or inside the style sheet as injected argument.
Yeah, so you're basically saying, you don't have to install React Native Safe Area View, I believe it's called, and you can kind of create your own safe area view or React Native Safe Area, and then you create your own safe area view if you are using Unistyles. So out of the box, one less dependency, and it's all unified within Unistyles. So if Unistyles is giving you 10 for your bottom inset, it's 10 throughout your application within there. I think for me, the one lesser known feature that I haven't really seen much people using are your listeners. I believe you have a listener for when the device is being rotated. So when you're going from a vertical to a horizontal device. Some apps let you toggle your, turn your device over. And when you do that, you want to be able to recalculate some values, right? So if you're using an iPhone, you have the top notch when it's vertical, but when it's horizontal, there is no top notch. How does that value change, and how does your app react to that specifically? Right. Okay, that's Unistyle's kind of history per se. What about Uniwind? Uniwind and Uniwind Pro. What was the origin story of these two?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I was never a fan of Tailwind, but as soon as I built React Native Crossroads, um, I had to use Tailwind, or I picked Tailwind.
Mhm.
Then I saw a big success of Native Wind.
Yeah.
Native Wind is super popular. AI, LLMs love it. If you try to, at least back then, back few months ago, when I tried to ask Claude or ChatGPT to generate some boilerplate for Unistyles, the output was always about Unistyles too. So I wasn't satisfied with that, and it was hard to, instruct every time ChatGPT or Claude that here is the LLM.txt, please use it. Um, so the first reason is that I wanted to somehow improve the native Wind. Native Wind is written in JavaScript, and with my knowledge about C++ and with lesson learned from Unistyles, I I was able to figure out how can we improve the parsing time, how can we move from code to the C++, and so on. So that was the main reason for Uniwind. And for Uniwind Pro, uh, it's some kind of experiment
Okay.
because this is yet again improved version of Unistyles core. It brings a lot of new features, a lot of improvements. So if you like Unistyles 3, in Uniwind Pro, everything is better. Like everything is type safe. I don't store any like runtimes. It's hard to explain if someone is not into JSI, but it's super safe on the C++ side. It allows developer to update any React Native component property without re-render. And I said it's an experiment because we want to try to charge for it. It takes like months of development, and we didn't want to make sites paid. So we decided, and we say we because the co-author of the library, the second author is Hubert from CodeMask. We decided to give very good open source version that should be the fastest on the market. It's written in JavaScript. You can use it in Expo Go, and then we wanted to try to give something on top, like the best performance for teams like Infinite Red or some kind of crypto apps or native animations during the team transitions, like features that are required by few, but that will help us to push the boundaries and to support both Unistyles and Uniwind.
Nice, nice. And to confirm, Uniwind Pro is, it's paid version, it's not open source essentially. Um, and then I know it's not available yet for everyone, right? There's a wait list, or have you opened up that wait list?
I removed the waitlist
Okay.
yesterday, and
Yesterday. Nice.
I hope I'm gonna release it to public this week.
Okay.
That's the plan. I disabled the waitlist because almost 2K developers joined the waitlist, so we have a lot of
Yeah.
interest here, and we want to give like the priority for these developers who sign up, so they will try Uniwind Pro first.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and then we have a question. I'm exploring Native Wind and came across Uniwind. I want to transition my team from Flutter to React Native. Do you think it's suitable for production yet? Is there any UI library that would be appropriate? Unistyles is definitely production ready. We're using it at InfiniRed for a bunch of our clients. What about Uniwind?
It's also production ready. It's the current version is 1.2.3 or 4. We don't get any new bugs about some stupid parsing or actually we use it at CodeMass in few projects. I would definitely say it's production ready. For the Pro, it's in beta. So I must say that it's in beta. If you want to give it a try, we'll extend the license by almost 3 months to whoever try Unit Pro, because we know it's in beta. It's like the new technology with a lot of C++, so something may break.
No, so Mr. Tung, reach out to Jacek after this and try and and give it a go in production for sure. Here's another question: can Uniwind Pro be affected by Tailwind issue with LLM?
That's a good question. When I saw the post from the author of Tailwind, I understood that we could have a problem. That's why we want to give something for free to 98 or 7% of developers and teams out there, and we will maintain it for free. But we wanted to introduce Pro version for companies that want to push the limits of reactive styling and yet compensate it, and to fund the development, maintenance of Uniwind and Unistyles.
Perfect.
So I don't think we are affected.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, not affected. Cool. And then Sean, I believe this comment is for Mr. Tungdev and everyone, specifically Sean Barker from InfiniRed mentioned Hero UI native is awesome for component libraries that use native Uniwind. So there you go. There's packages already leveraging this, so it definitely is production ready for sure.
Yeah, Hero UI native is great, and maybe you missed it, but also React Native reusables allows to use Uniwind. So we have 2 UI kits at the
React
moment
Native reusables.
Nice.
Yeah. Those UI kits are always easier for when you're starting up an app, right? But like you said at the beginning of the show, when your client gives you the Figma of these 1,000 screen Figmas and thousands of components and thousands of props that the components can have, is just always easier to kind of roll your own design system. That's something that I'm very partial to. Like I always like to do that. One app that we've mentioned that we've done at InfiniRed I was part of was the Mercari app for the US. And that one has a full design system built internally. Now, it's not using Unistyles specifically, but it's an internally built, component library, because of that. And we tested out different UI kits and came to the conclusion, can roll your own. Why not?
Yeah, and also that's why I wanted to, I wanted to focus on the styling itself, not on the components.
Yeah.
That's why Unistyles and Uniwind is not about the button or switch or whatever you use in your app. So you should definitely try Hero UI native or React Native reusables if you want to get some kind of UI kit feeling with Unistyles or Uniwind.
Perfect. So I think we're at the point where I want to transition us to, you have some slides and demos for us, which I think is great because, like I said earlier, if you didn't watch Jacek's talk at React Universe 2025 last year, so a couple months ago, really great talk. I think Jacek is going to kind of give us a little bit of what he talked about there. And what I love about this is we're starting bare bones. We're starting with just plain old style sheet and then kind of building upon it. So yeah, go ahead, Jacek.
Yeah, thank you, Mason. So before we start, we need to understand what's the issue with the style sheet. If we don't understand it, we won't understand why I created such libraries. So if we start with the basic example, everyone knows it. We can import style sheet from React Native. Of course, this is not a complete JavaScript JSX. This is like the pseudocode.
Yeah.
But you import some kind of view text, scroll view from React Native, and you pass object from stylesheet.create. Stylesheet.create is just a function that accepts object with your random keys like container box or whatever you call it, and then you have object assigned to it with CSS-like properties. And then you can see on iOS or Android emulator Redbox. But if you stop here for a second and you start thinking about one problem, how is it even possible that red, which is plain English, is translated somehow to dimensional red box? This is just a W3C spec compilant name, but there is a road that goes from JavaScript to the C++ and to the native layer. And what about theming? If you want to theme your React Native app, you can use color scheme from React Native, yes, because this is widely available. But we still have the same problem. We introduced one new hook, and your background color is still hard-coded to red. So we need to add more code. So we import static objects like light theme, dark theme, and then conditionally we select the theme, and then we can remove the hard-coded color from the style sheet and assign or create new array that we pass to the view style, so it will be themed. Of course, we can do better. We can abstract it away. We can, for example, call it use theme, and it will do the same stuff underneath. Okay, but what about responsiveness? What if you want to target orientation change, like the vertical or horizontal fonts and tablets and even web with React Native Web? Then we have another problem. We need to introduce another listener, another, for example, use brain. So we will still use more hooks to accomplish same styling problems. Even though if you abstract them away, you still need to use hook. So what's the problem with this approach? There is no problem. Most of the apps that I know and run in production use style sheet. So there is nothing wrong about it. And it's the most performant way to style in React Native. Why? Because there is no parsing.
Yeah.
If you use this style sheet create and you put here with height and so on, it's static. So it goes directly to the React Native, C++, and to the native layer. But you start to see that you repeat the logic everywhere, like every screen, every component needs to use your hooks. And the biggest issue is with re-renders. So if you use hook and your component has some kind of business logic that is not related to styles, you either need to memorize it, abstract it away, and so on. So if you start to see these problems, I think you should think about some kind of solution that can help you. So let's start with the first demo. Terminal. Okay, let's build it quickly.
Yeah, this is very, very informative too, because you mentioned it's not scalable, right? So if you do have the thousands of Figma files and components, you're gonna have to rewrite this code. Sure, you can abstract it into a hook, but then you also have multiple re-renders that might happen along the way, and that can just be not performant down the line.
Yeah, and this is the boilerplate. This is the starter project from Expo. So there is nothing cool about it, but I just want to show you the problem that I mentioned. So we have some kind of screens here, and we have a lot of themed text. So we can assume that this component knows about the theme, and same with the themed view. So let's check them. And here we use some kind of hook, use theme color to check the color scheme, to maybe import some theme underneath and so on, and same with the view. So each component that is themed needs to be a subscriber, needs to re-render to show you when color scheme change or theme change or orientation change. And if we check the hooks folder here, default expo template re-exports the use color scheme from React Native. And here we have static theme, like I mentioned. So that's the exact behavior. This is the default template, and you need to use static theme, like theme dart theme, plus hooks. And if you do that, and you use this shortcut, you can see it reacts to color scheme changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is
So
Command Shift A, just to confirm. That's how you're changing the appearance. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think every React Native developer knows about it. This is how it works. This is like the baseline. And yeah, maybe let's explore how can we improve it.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's move to the second folder. In the meantime, let's rebuild it. Okay, and let's move back to the presentation. Okay, so that's why I created Unistyles. You can see we have some problems. Maybe we can somehow, make it not that problematic. If you are a good developer, you can use these hooks, you can use it wisely, you can wrap everything in use memo and so on. Yeah. But if you want to focus on business logic and skip thinking about these problems, you can consider Unistyles. So this is the previous example, one-to-one. We have some hooks to hook to the color scheme changes and breakpoint changes. And with Unistyles, actually, what you had to do is to just change the import from React Native to React Native Unistyles. And if you check here, your styling logic moves away from the component itself. You don't need to repeat yourself 100 times, use color scheme, use color, use theme, use breakpoint value. There is no hook, which means there is no re-render. And I will explain how it's possible that we won't re-render. And the only difference is here. So React Native Unistyles can accept, like on the left snippet, the object. It will work out of the box. But if you want to, you can convert statute create to a function, to a callback, and you will receive two arguments. These arguments are from C++. This is your T copy that you defined while you created the Unistyles config, and the runtime. And runtime is about fresh values from Swift, from Kotlin, like insets, status bar, navigation bar, color scheme, is portrait. I even inject some accessibility properties about your font size. And right now, you can skip background color red, and you can just use theme color. It's type safe. Yeah, so that's the idea of Unistyles on one screen.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That simplifies the code, and then also abstracts all the layer of the quote unquote logic down to the C++ layer, which is more performant, less code, more scalable at the end of the day.
And the cool thing is that this stylesheet.create here actually is not called in JavaScript, it's called in C++. So even though you write it in JavaScript, it's not called in JavaScript.
Yeah.
Like nothing is called in JavaScript. So that's why like most of the code is in the C++.
That's interesting.
So the architecture of plain reactive style sheet is simple. It just lives in JavaScript because actually if you check the implementation, it's just a function, it returns your styles and that's all. The magic happens later. But if you take a look on Unistyles v3, there's a thin layer with Nitro hybrids. Then you have big layer of C++. And there is also a custom code for Kotlin and Swift. It's required for listening for platform changes like orientation change, color scheme change, and so on. So what's the difference? How is it even possible that that user rotates the screen and there is no VRAM or color scheme change and there is no render? It's here because with the default React Native behavior, if you use color scheme, use something, the value comes from native platform, which is on Android Kotlin and iOS it's Swift, directly to the JavaScript. And JavaScript is kind of a listener that you need to use in your hook that will render your component with state or something. And with Unistyles, I stop like one layer before. Like there is no callback to JavaScript. Everything is processed in C++. And this is the most important part. I took it from the React Native documentation. And I want you to like focus for a second because this is super important. Because if we start to talk about JSI, Shadow tree, Shadow nodes, it might be a little bit, problematic to understand. So let's start from the React.js, from the first part. If you use your view, if you import your view or text inside your JSX, you create React Native tree. This is tree of your components. But at the same time, because of the fabric, you construct automatically the shadow tree. So this is the different representation of your JSX tree of your components inside C++. And then at the same time, you need to render it somehow. So React Native Fabric manages also native tree. Yeah. So just remember, if you import view and it's in JSX, actually, let's call it it's copied time in 3 trees. Okay?
Okay.
And as you saw, Unistyles live a little bit on the JavaScript side, so that's why it's here like the unicorn, but mostly it lives here. So we can stop here. And how it's possible? If you use your style sheet from React Native Unistyles, the Babel plugin will go through your style sheet and will annotate your box container, your styles with the dependencies. So if you once used container theme.colors.background, Babel will notify, okay, container style depends on theme. Later, maybe you use runtime.inset. So Babel plugin will annotate that this style depends on insets, and so on and so forth. And later, if native platform sends event to C++ to Unistyles, I'm able to check in style sheet registry your dependencies, select affected styles, recompute it in the background, and modify this single tree with the shadow tree update. So it immediately updates via the React Native Fabric the native view hierarchy. So in other words, I don't modify the React tree. I don't need to, because if you re-render your component, I will again return fresh values. So for React, it will be fine. React is not listening for the shadow tree changes in a way that, if I update it, it will update the React tree. If you update the native tree, it will automatically be visible on your phone.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very important. So I think if anyone in the audience has any questions, please feel free to ask. So Jacek could kind of clarify this. This is where all the unicorn magic is happening underneath all this on the fabric layers, so that we don't have the re-renders. Because, like you mentioned earlier, if we're looking at pure style sheet and you were to make any change high up in the tree, every single thing needs to re-render further down, right? So with Unistyles, that's not happening. It's not happening. It's just fabric and the like you mentioned there, the shadow view shadow node. All that magic is happening there, so that the re-rendering doesn't trickle down all the way down. And internally, at the end of the day, that causes performance issues too, right? So there's also that thing to kind of keep in mind when your screen re-renders, the UI takes a hit. So awesome.
Okay, so let's check then how it looks with the Unistyles. Do we have simulator? Cool. Let's open Windsurf. Okay, so this is again the same repository, but with the modified files. Let's start with the themed text and view. So if you go here, let me close it for a second. There is no hook magically. I just changed the import, and I was able to subscribe or to take theme here, and it automatically and it will be automatically annotated by the Babel that container depends on theme. So anytime it will change, it will update the shadow tree and not React. You can, I think I can also show you the Unistyles config, because again, this is the const static object with your colors. You can put here anything you want, even a function. So it works the same like with the style sheet example with the export template. You define your colors, you define finite number of themes. You can even define breakpoints, and then magically you just call configure, and you're good to go.
And you can set up. You can also set up
text.
values for spacing.
We just have a hook, right?
Yeah.
Well, we don't. This is not a hook. This looks like a hook because of the React compiler. I had to add its prefix, but actually it also sets synchronously some values on the C++ side. So if you read this value below with the styles, it will attach variants. So with Unistyles, you can also use variants, like here. So the lesson from this example is that with Unistyles, you don't need to use any hooks. Unistyles updates shadow tree. And what about the orientation, right? Because I complained that with style sheet we don't have orientation changes or breakpoints. So if we go to the modal screen here, actually let's try to do a live demo. So this is the React Native style sheet. We just need to change the import, save, nothing changes. Like I said, the React Native Unistyles accepts style sheets. Then we can convert it to function. Team RT. And one more bracket. Cool. Save. No changes. And then let's say we want to make this text. This is a modal to change based on the orientation. So we can, so trust me, I tried it before. So with the runtime, with the Unistyles runtime, you can use a lot of properties like name, pixel ratio, is portrait, and so on. So we can explore it later. So if I revert the code and attach to this tint style, styles, modal text, and save, it immediately changed the color, but if I rotate the screen, it's red.
It's perfect.
So that's the idea of the Unistyles.
We had a question from an audience. I wonder, is it possible to have dynamic themes that are obtained from the backend on Unistyles? That's actually something I've wondered too myself.
Yes, it's possible. There is an API that helps you to update the theme in the runtime. So your only goal, or your only the only thing you need to do is to register the theme name beforehand during the app startup. For example, you can call it custom theme, and later, before your user will render any screen or you fetch the data from the API, you can just call. I don't remember the API update theme, and you pass the name, and you can do whatever you want. But you need to know the shape beforehand to get the TypeScript hints.
Yeah. Type safety is very important. So, know your shape beforehand for sure.
Okay. Now, what about Uniwind? Because this is like the third option. So the name is funny because it comes from Unistyles plus Tailwind. That's why it's called Uniwind. I noticed that some of you prefer different syntax. To be honest, if you use stylesheet or inline styles, you need to either import stylesheet from stylesheet or Unistyles, then you need to construct these objects. And sometimes you prefer, or you come from web, so you prefer the Tailwind. So that's why I decided to create with Hubert second option. Right now, I'm talking about the open source version that you can use even today for free. It's written in JavaScript, 100% JavaScript. And the difference is still, again, the same. You don't need to use any hooks. But what you can use is new property called class name. On every React component, we expose automatically this new property called class name. You can use subset of classes. Why a subset? Because Tailwind was designed for web, so we don't have some weird parent-to-children styles and so on. And your team configuration doesn't live in JavaScript, it lives in CSS file. So that's why if you need to somehow convert your string with Tailwind classes to React Native style sheet compatible styles, we expose one hook. And yes, it will re-render your component because we need to subscribe to theme changes, orientation changes, yada, yada, yada. But if your charting library, or I don't know, maybe Skia Canvas doesn't understand the class names, you can easily, convert the plain text Tailwind classes to objects. Again, I mentioned that configuration lives inside CSS. So in order to get some custom values, I forget to add the brackets here, but you can pass a list of your variables and you can get array or single value of your hex colors. So this is like the different way of using React Native style sheet, because again, we converted to styles. React Native only understands the JavaScript plain styles objects. So if you are interested in looking into Tailwind version of Unistyles, just check uniwind.dev. We have very good documentation. You can start in 5 minutes. But if you prefer Unistyles, I would say you should stick to objects and Unistyles.
Yeah. And
Are we ready for the demo?
I think before you jump into the demo, there's one question here. Using Native Wind with Tailwind v3, a lot of CSS interop.views are created. which adds up in virtual lists and affects performance. How much of an improvement is native wind free in that case?
That's a good question. So first of all, Uniwind works with Tailwind v4. We don't have option to downgrade to v3, and it's a big difference. Why? Because v3 used JavaScript for a configuration like Unistyles. So we had to configure your Tailwind via the JavaScript, and with v4 we can pre-build all your styles beforehand, before you even run the app inside the Metro pipeline, because we have access to the CSS, to global CSS file, where you configure all your themes, all your variables, and so on. We also, so that's the first difference. The second difference is that CSS interop overrides your components globally. So if you use CSS interop override, for example, my chart library component, it will override every instance of this component inside your app. The difference is that we took a different approach. You need to construct like CSS interop version like Reanimated does. So Reanimated uses animated.create animated component, and we have something called with Unistyles. That's why you are sure that you use modified version. So it's not like a, it's obvious that your styled charting component is modified because you need to import or you need to use different component in the JSX. And last but not least, I mentioned that we spent a lot of time in the profiler to check where are the performance bottlenecks. So our initial version 1.0.0 was 2.5 faster than Wind out of the box. So yeah, so these things combined may help you with the performance.
Nice, yeah, that's helpful. And I assume, the difference between V3 and V4 Tailwind kind of gives you some of that leverage right there. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, online persona. And then there's another quick question here. And do we still have the Unistyles runtimes in Uniwind?
Yes, but it's not exposed for the user.
Okay.
Because you don't need to. Like with the Tailwind, you don't need to use any, objects and so on. You have access to everything inside the class name.
Perfect. Cool. So yeah, let's get to the demo.
Okay, let's go to the Uniwind and apps. And then let's try
Oh, the demo gods. Bun.
I think it won't work because I tried it previously. I have the two apps called the same. So let's find the icon here. Let's, for example, okay, and let's open the windsurf, for example. Okay, cool. So that's the difference. If you check the demo code, so this is our playground for all the class names from the Tailwind. Again, it's an open source version, so you can use it every day, like even now. And the only difference inside the component, like we don't have any hooks here, so that's a good call. But here we import the global CSS. So like I said, with Tailwind 4, let's change the CSS to Tailwind, so it won't. So you don't need to go to the JavaScript to define your themes. Everything lives here. You can import from you just import from Uniwind. This is our config file, and then you need to follow the Tailwind for syntax. Like we didn't figure out this layer theme. This is like the regular V4 Tailwind syntax, and you can switch between multiple themes. Like Hubert here showcased a demo app with 3 themes. So we have light theme, dark theme, and premium theme. You can define as many themes as you want. And if we check the code, this is just like the web Tailwind code. So we support plenty of classes, and here we can test it. So we have spacing, sizing, typography, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, we tested a lot of features before we released the 1.0. And my coolest feature is gradients, because if you want to use gradients, you need to use, I think it's called experimental dash image background. And with Tailwind, if you scroll to the bottom, it's just from something to something. And it's if we skip this example that we also need to support because Tailwind supports it, I think it's better. So again, if you prefer Tailwind, please take a look on Uniwind. This is a different approach. This is a fresh, different approach for the Tailwind bindings for React Native.
That's pretty cool. And I think, if you're coming from web and that Tailwind is what you're used to, this is, it gives it to you on a mobile app and it's performant and you kind of get to carry over. This demo app. Thanks for putting this together. I think a lot of libraries and library maintainers tend to skip the example app part. And I think it's very important to have an example app within it. And this is a exhaustive example app. So I really appreciate that. And it has everything. And yes, linear gradients can be frustrating. Very frustrating. Yeah. No, that's cool. Awesome. The next up, I think, is Uniwind Pro. Is that right?
Yeah. So the last part is Uniwind Pro.
Already audience.
So we already talked about it, why I did it with Hubert, but let's repeat it quickly. So based on lesson learned on Unistyles 3.2, and my 4 years journey with JSI, C++, I even showed Mazen books that I have here with C++. So I'm full of C++ books, so it's not that easy to implement, but you can get used to it. So Uniwind Pro improved version of Unistyles 3. So it's more capable, and I will show you how in a second. It has the best performance. Again, we spent a lot of time with the profiler to find the bottlenecks, and actually this version can manipulate the layer. So I will show you in a second what does it mean. Again, we have the same picture from React Native documentation. So Uniwind Pro lives also, like Unistyles 3, on these 2 layers, JavaScript and C++, but it also manipulates the native views a little bit. And what does it mean? It means that we can even go back to this question about CSS interop. So why do we even need to use CSS interop? Because if someone uses component that is not a React Native component, we as library authors, we don't know how to update the view with a class name because there is no such prop. And of course, library maintainer of other view library won't know that maybe it would be good to pass class name, to the view. So let's take example with the even with React Native button. React Native button doesn't have style property. So what now? Like if you use Unistyles, you can't pass style to the button because there is no such prop. But button has a color property. So I said it's improved version of Unistyles because Unistyles is not capable of updating button color plot. And with the Uniwind Pro, every property, every style property that is accessible via the property Reactive components in switch, button, scroll view can be updated without re-render. I think there is one or two exceptions. One is with the keyboard avoiding view. The internals of this component doesn't allow us to update it. The second one was with the table without highlight, I think, because the initial, like the internal implementation uses some kind of states, weird states that that maybe doesn't block us from updating it, but produces weird glitches because it remembers the old state. Apart from that, you can update button color, switch, I don't know how it's called, track, and content container styles, any other property. So let's take a look how it works.
Yeah, I put on here earlier, excited for Uniwind Pro, so people are excited for it.
So here is my repository and example app that I spent here last 6 months. It's called Pro Example.
I'm excited to see this.
It may take a while, like 1 minute, because it's a lot of C++ and code.
Well, that's fine. While it's running, I have a question for you. So, what about web considerations? Not just web, out of tree platforms. Does this work for desktop, TV, not just Uniwind, but also Unistyles?
Yeah, so Unistyles 2 supported every platform that was available for React Native. So React Native Windows, macOS, visionOS, tvOS, and so on. I decided to skip this platform with 3.0 because it requires from me to at least double the time of the implementation, because I need to test on Windows, macOS, tvOS, visionOS, and so on. So this time we decided to stick to web, iOS, Android for Unistyles 3, and for Uniwind Pro it's the same, but I think it will be requested from the community. I think I can easily add macOS support for Uniwind Pro, and maybe tvOS is also required. Like, if anyone will found it by purchasing the Pro version and requires it, I think I can build it with no problem, like the missing bindings. For the Windows, I'm not sure. Like, Microsoft did a great job with Reactive Windows, but I'm a Mac user, and creating the environment inside that parallels virtual machine is a tedious task. So it's not the easiest task to.
Yeah, it's tricky. And right now, it's tricky because right now React Native Windows and React Native Mac OS is still, I believe, not 100% parity with React Native API for everything. I think they're still working on that. So to then, be able to do, linear gradients, that just adds way more complexity, right? So yeah, that's understandable. So iOS, Android, web for Unistyles v3 and native and UIWind, sorry, and then Uniwind Pro, same, but you're open to to other platforms if the community needs it. Great.
Yeah, so that's the last demo for today. Let's shrink it down a little bit. So here is my demo app. I imported every reactive component, and I implemented every parser for every property that you can pass from the JavaScript to the C++. So later we can update it from the C++. So if we go back for a second to the code, expand it right now. Here we have a lot of views, a lot of playgrounds. So each file is a different playground. So if you go to the button that we mentioned before, take a look. There is no hook anywhere. And you can just use color class name, and you can even use some selectors like disabled. And as soon as color scheme changes or theme changes, we will update it without re-render. But before that, let me show you the global CSS. Let's change it to Tailwind. So this is how you do it with the Uniwind free version and pro version. You just define your CSS variables, like here, and you can change the theme. So here we have dark, light, and coffee, and I'll show it to you in a second. So if you want to update any repetitive property, you don't need to wrap it in CSS interop because it works out of the box. You need to wrap it in our version called with Uniwind if you use third-party library like, I don't know, Save Area View, because maybe you want to. This component don't know how to consume class names. What's important, you don't need to wrap animated components from Reanimated because internally they use React Native and we are sure about it, so we can add support for class name on top of them. Yeah, so if you check one more example, for example, with Pressable, look, no hooks, nothing. You just write your pseudo classes, you use your CSS variables here, and it just works. If we go back to the simulator right now, so here we have our free themes that I defined in global CSS here. So we have coffee, light, and dark. And the first feature that I implemented in Uniwind Pro is theme transition. So if we select none, and pay attention to this re-renders count. If we click light, it will re-render because we need to, highlight the button. So that's why it re-renders. If we change to dark, there is no animation, nothing, like in Unistyles. If you click coffee, it goes to coffee. But as soon as you click fade, it will fade gently, like every property. And it may seem like an easy problem, but at the time I clicked the button, React re-rendered because it had to highlight the new component. Shadow tree update that I did in the C++ had to update the components, and some native views had to be updated out of the shadow tree. So we have like multiple updates that are synchronized into one single frame. If you use slide, it just slides. Like you can see the perfect animation. And the last one is circle. So right now, I export only 3 presets. I want to expand this API because it's possible. And if we go to the button here, so this is our button code. Let's see how it looks like in the code base. So here we have default button, no styles. It's just rendered by React Native. Here we have a button with color class name. And here we have default button that is disabled. And we even followed the React Native rules. So you cannot update the color of disabled button. Actually, I could do it from the C++, but I disabled it because I want to follow the regular native rules. So even though you set here disabled red, it stays dark. And if we change the theme, we change the color without re-render. It says here that it re-rendered, but it didn't because it's only about this component that needs to highlight. So that's the idea of Uniwind Pro.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's pretty cool. That's nice to see. In this app, again, you put in a lot of work into kind of mapping everything and showing all its capabilities. That's great. Shadows are another thing that could be, well, no longer a pain now that we have box shadow and in React Native, but still. Yeah.
If you report any bug, I can easily check it. So, you know.
Yeah. So be sure to double check before you report a bug, essentially. That's awesome. Yeah. I think this stream is very, eye-opening and informative. There's so much capability with styling, so much out there. And, you've put in a lot of work in this and it shows specifically with this. Yeah, go ahead. I think you still have a couple slides.
I have a few more slides, like 3 or 4. One more thing, I want to mention it one more time. I'm not the only author of Uniwind and Unistyles. Hubert Bierstadt from Codemast, he's hyper focused on the open source version. He did the Metro parser, the CSS parser. So we split our jobs. I focus on the pro version, and Hubert's focus mostly on the open source version. So without him, I wouldn't be here. And it took us 6 months, from the idea. So hopefully this week I will be able to release it like the pro version. So that's the goal. If you are interested in such topics like deep dive into the React Native internals, please take a look on my presentation during the React Native Universe Conf last year. It's called Mission Unistyles, the hunt for zero-cost runtime styling, where I explain deeply how it works. Like you write background color red, and it appears at the red box. And one more thing, because most of you may think that I hyper-focus on the Uniwind. That's not true. I will start to work on Unistyles 4 soon. It's not a forgotten project. I just can't focus on 2 things at once. Unistyles 4 will bring back all the improvements from the Uniwind Pro. So if you are still interested in style sheets, objects, and you hate Tailwind, I get you, and I will bring it back to the style sheet too. Thank you. So that's my last slide for today.
Yeah, thank you, Jacek. Yeah, I included in the comments the link to your YouTube talk at React Universe. I highly recommend everyone listening taking the time to listen to it, because I love how you followed the code down with it, and I think that's very informative. And again, I really want to stress it, like stylesheet.create is doing something in Unistyles now, right? And I've mentioned it a bunch on the podcast before. It might not seem like much, but if you look at the code of React Native stylesheet.create, all it's doing is, object freeze if it's in dev, I believe. Then if you're not in dev, it's just returning the object. And you're like, but that's not performant. That's not doing anything. There's a lot still happening, but like now stylesheet.create with Unistyles is doing something specifically. So give that YouTube link a watch, definitely, because I think it's very helpful. And I really appreciate everything that you're putting into Unistyles. I'm a fan of Unistyles. I think it might be, a hot take to say live and it'll be on the internet forever. But if you like Tailwind, you go full in on Tailwind, and that's it. You want nothing to do with anything else. If you're all in on like React Native styling, so Unistyles and objects specifically, you want nothing to do with Tailwind. So it's like a very polarizing topic specifically, right? And you're bridging both of them, which I love, and you're giving back to each one of them. So at the end of the day, they're both performant and kind of getting everything. And
we will support both.
Yeah. I'm excited for Unistyles V4. So again, like V3, message me and I can help you beta test it early, like we did with V3. Well, that's awesome. Cool. So as we begin to wrap up, I'd like to ask you a couple rapid fire questions just to kind of,
Okay, I'm ready.
You ready? Okay.
Yeah.
What music or song do you like to have playing while you code?
I open just hyper focus music on YouTube. Like anything. Like if you type focus music, you have plenty of them.
Okay. Nice, nice. What's your favorite travel spot to code from?
Travel spot. Well, to be honest, I work from the office, and I don't like to work while on holidays or something. So no place.
I'm going to ask this again, but I think you kind of showed it. What are 1 to 2 books you've been recommending, or you would recommend people read?
Yeah, so the first one is Effective Modern C++. I think it's the best book about the C++. There is no book about JSI, unfortunately, but you need to go to the Reactive Internals and read it. And the second one, well, I have a lot of them. It's too high to grab the book, but there is a second one about the C++ basics. I had to read it when I started to learn JSI, to understand these colons,
Yeah,
pointers, and so on.
yeah, those colons can be tricky. What's one piece of advice you'd give to someone just starting out in React Native?
Just trust the process. It takes a while. Even for me, I thought that JSI is too hard, and yet today I have 2 libraries that use C++ heavily, so everything is possible. Just trust the process.
Awesome. I like that. Trust the process. So, lastly, where can people find you if they want to reach out, and how can?
I think the best way is to reach me on X. I don't use Blue Sky. I rarely use LinkedIn. So if you want to drop me a message, just tag me on X or drop me a message. My DMs are always open.
Perfect. And then lastly, catching on to that, how can our listeners be useful to you?
To get a feedback from them. Like, imagine that if someone complains about Unistyles API because of the name of something, or maybe something doesn't work as expected, I really take your feedback as a value. One guy during the beta of Uniwind proposed different name for the adaptive teams. So this is the state where when your device follows the color scheme, when your Uniwind core follows the device scheme. So we use the same names like in Unistyles, and he said that it should be done better. And that's why we rethink this feature, we implement his feedback, and right now you have super easy out-of-the-box adaptive teams in Uniwind, and I think I will follow the same pattern in Unistyles 4.
That's awesome. That's great. So as always, I want to thank the audience for showing up today and asking questions. It was awesome interacting with you all and kind of getting those questions here for Jacek. And again, Jacek, thank you for coming on to the show. This was fun and very informative to me, and hopefully the audience can also get something out of it. As always, please don't forget to subscribe. The next episode is Native Speed Apps with Nitro Modules with Mark Rusavi. And as always, don't forget to reach out if you have any topic suggestions or that you'd like me to cover in the future. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.